Subscribe to Sinister Shadows Studio, beneath celestial chains. I had always been a loner, and after the accident that left me wheelchair-bound, my solitude had deepened. My cottage on the outskirts of town was isolated, surrounded by thick woods. My only companion was an old golden retriever named Rusty, whose loyalty was unwavering. It was a quiet autumn evening, the kind where you can hear the rustling of leaves and distant animal calls. I was on my porch, staring at the night sky. The stars have always fascinated me, but that evening they seemed different, flickering, almost. Before I could ponder the reason, a massive beam of light descended, and the deafening silence that followed sent a chill down my spine. Rusty began barking frantically, his eyes fixed on the woods. I strained to see what he was looking at. Emerging from the dense trees were silhouettes. Not human silhouettes. These were tall, slender, with elongated arms and large heads. My heart pounded. The stories we'd heard about alien encounters raced through my mind. These beings were unmistakably not from our world. Their steps were synchronized, making their approach even more terrifying. Rusty stood between me and them, growling. One of the aliens extended its hand, emitting a soft blue glow. I felt a strange pull, almost hypnotic. Fighting the urge to give in, I gripped my wheelchair's armrests, trying to shake off the trance. The alien's glow intensified. I could hear whispers, not with my ears, but in my mind. Seek, understand, connect. It took everything in me to resist. Rusty, sensing my struggle, snapped and lunged at them. But just as he was about to make contact, he was lifted off the ground by an invisible force. "Rusty!" I screamed. One of the beings, its fingers still glowing, approached me. It touched the side of my wheelchair. Suddenly, my memories were on display. My accident, the despair, the countless nights staring at the stars, yearning for something more. I could feel their empathy, their curiosity. They weren't here to harm, but to learn. The alien then touched my legs, and I felt a tingle, a sensation I hadn't felt in years. Slowly, almost unbelievably, I stood up, taking a step forward. Rusty was gently placed back on the ground, wagging his tail as he came running to me. The aliens, seemingly satisfied with their interaction, retreated to the woods. As I looked up, the stars resumed their steady twinkle. The beam of light retracted, and just as quickly as they had appeared, they were gone. Days turned into weeks. I kept the encounter a secret, not sure who would believe me. But the gift they'd left me with, the ability to walk, was undeniable. But then things began to change. At night I'd hear the whispers again, growing louder and more insistent. Return. Obligation. Balance. I would wake up in the woods, standing at the exact spot where the aliens had first appeared. Rusty would be there, barking and pulling me back home. Then, one fateful evening, they returned. This time, their approach was different, urgent. Their blue glow had turned an ominous red. I could sense their desperation. "Return what was given," the whispers echoed. I felt an unbearable pull, not just mentally but physically. My legs started to wobble, the strength draining from them. I understood. They wanted to take back the gift. Rusty growled, standing protectively in front of me. But this time, I knew what needed to be done. "I understand," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "Take it." The alien's glow shifted from red to a soft pink. One of them approached, touching my legs. The sensation I had come to cherish faded, and I found myself back in the wheelchair. With their task completed, they retreated once again. As I watched them disappear into the night, Rusty nuzzled against me, offering his silent comfort. The aliens had given me a brief taste of a life lost, but in their desperation to understand, they had reminded me of the deeper connection I shared with Rusty, a bond that went beyond mobility. Now, as I gaze at the stars, I no longer see them as distant lights. They're a reminder of the vastness of the universe, the unknown, and the understanding that sometimes the greatest gifts come with a price. Altered worlds. The rain tapped lightly against the windows of our home. Alex, Tyler, and I were cuddled together on the couch, a movie playing softly in the background. This cozy atmosphere was suddenly shattered by a piercing screech that seemed to come from the sky itself. I looked out the window and saw the atmosphere tearing apart. Pillars of lights shot down, and immense crafts, unlike anything I'd ever seen, descended. "They're here," Alex whispered, gripping my hand. Tyler, clutching his teddy bear, looked up at me, his blue eyes wide with fear. "Mommy, what's happening?" Before I could answer, our surroundings changed. Our cozy living room was replaced by a sterile metallic chamber. Figures with large, almond-shaped eyes and slender bodies stood around us. A memory jolted me. When I was a child, I had experienced something similar. An abduction, they called it, but I had dismissed it as just a dream, a fragment of my imagination. One of the beings approached and communicated without speaking. Images flashed before my eyes, their dying world, their need for a new home, their understanding of humanity, and their interest in me, and now, my family. They separated us. I was placed in a chamber, a soft blue light enveloping me. Time seemed distorted. It felt as though hours, days, maybe even years had passed. The sensation wasn't painful. It was unsettling, like being lost within one's own consciousness. I was abruptly pulled back to reality by a familiar voice. "Fiona!" It was Alex, but he looked different. Older, with streaks of gray in his hair and deep lines on his face. Tyler, who should have been just 5, looked more like a teenager. "Alex? What happened? How long have we been here?" His face turned somber. "Years, Fee. They've been studying us, especially Tyler." I looked at our son. His face matured, yet retaining traces of his childhood innocence. My heart ached at the lost years. "We need to leave," I whispered. Tyler approached, placing a hand on my arm. The touch sent a rush of memories into my mind. They had enhanced him, given him abilities. He communicated through thoughts, showing me visions of our escape, of using their technology against them. Together, we navigated the massive craft. With Tyler leading us, manipulating the ship's mechanisms, we reached the main control room. There, we saw our planet, not as we remembered, but overrun with their constructs, their people. Despair filled me, but Tyler projected determination. He interfaced with the ship's controls, causing a massive surge. The craft began to destabilize. The alarms wailed, and chaos ensued. "We need to jump," Tyler communicated. He created a portal, a window to a familiar, yet slightly altered Earth. Holding hands, the 3 of us took a leap of faith. We landed in a dense forest. It was Earth, but not exactly our Earth. The cities, the languages, the cultures were a blend of human and alien. With Tyler's newfound abilities, we blended in, built a life. However, the weight of our lost years always hung over us. We realized the aliens hadn't just invaded our world, they had woven their essence into the very fabric of our existence. The nights were hardest. I'd often wake up, haunted by fragmented memories of our time aboard their ship, of the choices they made for us, of the life we once had. Yet, amidst the challenges, we found strength in our unity. We were, after all, survivors of an ordeal that spanned time and space, holding on to the hope that one day, we'd find our way back to the world we once knew. Echoes from beyond. There are events in life that one can never explain. Some whisper about it in hushed tones, others ridicule it as mere folklore. But I, Jackson, can swear by what I've seen, for the night it happened was unlike any other. It all began on a particularly dark evening. The moon was hidden behind thick, stormy clouds, making the night eerily pitch black. I had just arrived at my countryside home after a long week in the city. The comforting isolation of my retreat always provided the solace I craved. But that night, tranquility was the last thing I would find. As I was preparing dinner, a bizarre humming noise echoed in the distance. Initially, I brushed it off as the wind, but as the minutes ticked by, the noise grew louder and clearer, resonating like a chorus of 1,000 murmurs. I ran to the window, scanning the horizon, but saw nothing. Suddenly, the ground vibrated. Objects in my house danced erratically. Pictures fell off the wall, dishes shattered. The humming turned into a deafening roar, drowning out all other sounds. I covered my ears, but the sound seemed to penetrate my very soul. Drawn like a moth to a flame, I stepped outside. The sky had transformed into a kaleidoscope of colors, shimmering in hues of blue, green, and purple. In the midst of this surreal spectacle, a colossal metallic structure descended from the heavens, landing with a few hundred meters from my house. The structure, sleek and otherworldly, bore no resemblance to anything I had ever seen. Hatches on its sides began to open, revealing creatures that were unmistakably not of our world. They stood on 3 legs with gelatinous translucent skin, their eyes deep, black, and emotionless. Frozen with fear, I hid behind a tree, observing as these extraterrestrial beings began gathering soil, plants, and even animals. It was as if they were cataloging Earth's biodiversity. Suddenly, one of the beings started moving in my direction. Panic surged through me. My heart raced, but any attempt to flee would surely draw attention. So I stayed still, hoping the darkness would shield me. But it was in vain. One of them was now just a few feet away, its black eyes seeming to scan the environment. It stopped for a brief moment, inches away from my hiding spot, before resuming its path. I exhaled in relief. I needed to get a closer look. Every instinct told me to run, but an inexplicable curiosity anchored me there. Crawling carefully, I approached the ship, making sure to stay hidden. As I drew closer, I could see the beings communicating, but not through sounds. It was as if they were transmitting thoughts. And then, it hit me. The humming. The sounds I had heard were not just noise, but their way of communication. I edged even closer, finding a small opening in their ship. Inside, I could see rows of glowing pods, each containing a motionless human, suspended in a liquid. The realization was chilling. They were collecting samples, and humans were part of their collection. A sudden sharp pain pierced the back of my neck. I turned around only to come face to face with one of the creatures. Its cold, emotionless eyes stared into mine. Everything turned blurry, and the world faded to black. I awoke inside one of the pods. My body was numb, and I could barely move. Outside, I could see the aliens busying themselves, seemingly preparing for departure. Desperation consumed me. Memories of loved ones, dreams unfulfilled, life's joyous moments, all flashed before my eyes. With every ounce of strength, I willed myself to move, pushing against the confines of my prison. To my surprise, the pod cracked, the liquid drained, and I fell to the ground, gasping for breath. I was free but surrounded by aliens. Escape seemed impossible. But then, as if guided by an unknown force, the ship's systems began malfunctioning. Lights flickered, alarms blared. The aliens were in disarray, trying to regain control. Seizing the opportunity, I ran, freeing as many humans as I could. We scrambled out of the ship, running into the woods, not looking back. Behind us, the ship lifted off, its bright lights illuminating the forest. The humming returned, but this time it was different, urgent and chaotic. As the ship ascended, it suddenly exploded in a burst of bright light, leaving a dazzling display in the night sky. The aliens, their ship, and the threats they posed were gone. Those of us who had escaped huddled together, a bond forged in the face of unspeakable terror. We had survived an alien encounter, a tale no one would believe. Back at my home, I struggled to come to terms with the night's events. The world had changed, or perhaps it was just my perception of it. Now, every time I hear a hum, see a flash in the sky, or feel the ground tremble, I'm reminded of that fateful night. And I wonder, are they gone for good, or was it just the beginning? Subscribe to Sinister Shadows Studio.